Welcome back to Bottled Water, everybody. Guess who we have? As you can see on this side, Mick West, first episode of the year. Why can I hear myself? Oh, God.
Technical problems.
Yeah, a little bit. Where's my... Oh, my God. That shouldn't be open. Close that. There we go. It's going to reverb for a couple seconds, and then it'll finally go away. Oh.
Sounds good to me. So.
Oh, probably because I have headphones on,
yeah,
so it's not going to reverb.
You're getting it two ways.
Yeah.
All righty.
Well, welcome back. We can't have a first episode of the new year without me messing something up. This is what happens when you produce, manage, and host your own show.
This is why I avoid live things. I know something is going to go wrong, and it's just so stressful. I like to just record it, and then I can get it out there with the first few minutes of all the glitches chopped off.
Well, yeah, that's part of why I like doing live, is because something will go wrong.
It's real.
It is real.
And of course, I can't take anything back now. It's all live.
Exactly. So, Mick, tell us about yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do. I want to hear it.
Well, I am a retired video game programmer, which is something that people sometimes throw at me as an insult. Which,
a little bit of a jab every now and again.
I know. But I'm pretty proud of what I did back in the day. I worked on the Tony Hawk series of video games. That's my Tony Hawk skateboard right there from Tony Hawk to THPS 1, the very first game. Tony gave us all a signed skateboard. And, I worked at Neversoft for a while after that, and then kind of like semi-retired and started doing some writing stuff, writing for game developer, and then doing my own writing, like blogs and such like on the internet, and kind of just found my way into debunking stuff. And when I say debunking stuff, I think it's important to say that doesn't mean like I'm setting out to disprove something. I'm setting out to investigate something and see whether it contains any bunk, nonsense and things that are wrong, and then take that out of the subject. So I did a lot. I started out doing this thing called Morgellons, which is this kind of weird disease. It was a little touchy to deal with because it dealt with a lot of highly emotional topics for people. But then I kind of segued into chemtrails, which was kind of interesting. That's the whole, the conspiracy theory that the government's spraying us with stuff.
With aluminum oxide or something like that.
Well, that's the one thing that the people say, which doesn't make any sense because aluminum oxide is just basically sand.
Yes.
It's what sandpaper is made from aluminum oxide. It's found everywhere. It's like it would be a ridiculous thing to spray, but people get these weird ideas in their heads. A good thing it's a little side thing, but like the aluminum is basically everywhere.
Yes, it is.
Like it's because it's one of the main components of dirt. And it's in dust. It's in the air. You're breathing in aluminum right now. The average person ingests 5 milligrams of, or maybe 5 micrograms. Yeah, quite a bit of aluminum every day in plants. So they find it everywhere. So there was this big conspiracy theory that they're spraying us with aluminum. So they'd go out into a field and they would like get a little bit of dirt or something, and they test it and they go, "Oh my God, it's full of aluminum." Which, of course, it is everywhere, and it always has been.
It is, yes.
Yeah. But, yeah, that was the fun conspiracy theory that I kind of, like, was interested in for several years. And then I got into more stuff, you start looking into one conspiracy theory and other ones come up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It happens both ways. If you're an investigator, a skeptic, a debunker, you discover new things. Mm-hmm. And if you're a believer... if you're someone who starts believing in the chemtrail conspiracy theory, then you're going to start believing that that maybe 9/11 was an inside job and there was explosives planted in the towers and things like that, and you'll start believing that Kennedy was killed by the CIA or someone, and then eventually what I've been doing recently a lot is looking into UFOs.
Right.
That's kind of been my main thing for a while, actually. It's been just... UFOs has always been like a real fun thing to look into because there's all these little ways you can analyze videos. And that which really ties into the whole video game thing, because video games require a lot of mathematics and a lot of 3D mathematics, and to do with, the camera is looking at a scene and that creates a picture. You can take that and you can run that exact same math in reverse and take a picture and try to figure out what the 3D scene is. So all the video game stuff was like basically training to be a UFO investigator. And that's what I'm doing now, investigating UFO videos.
The UFO phenomenon is kind of a double-edged sword. It's with Project Blue Book and previous government explanations into the phenomenon has kind of been wishy-washy at best sometimes, where they've kind of just been like, we think this is just swamp gas or the planet Venus, and people are having experiences, and I'm not going to say what anybody else has seen ever, but they're seeing things where it's moving, it's visibly moving. It's not like they're staring through a tree at a star, because I do that sometimes in my backyard. I can look at all the stars, and if you look through a tree, it kind of looks like they're moving if the wind is blowing or something.
Yeah, even if you're not looking through a tree, there's a thing called the autokinetic effect, where if you look at a single star, it looks like it's kind of moving around in the sky,
or
kind
like
of wobbling a little bit.
Pulsing.
Well, they do pulse. They do actually pulse because of just fluctuations in the atmosphere. But the autokinetic effect is kind of something to do with your eyes and your brain. If you look at any singular star, like Polaris, or like a bright one like Venus, that's you can't see much else around it, it's going to look like it's moving. It's one of these illusions that leads to UFO reports. Of course, just a few of them, some of them, a portion of them, but something to be aware of.
There's a lot of phenomenon that I find incredibly interesting, like what is it, the something valley?
The Uncanny Valley?
That one, yes. The Uncanny Valley.
That's kind of a little completely different topic in a way.
It does, but it's in a way, all this paranormal stuff seems to be connected.
Yeah, it's like how your brain works.
Yeah, in the human mind, like it's all connected. We experience all this different phenomenon. And when I look at Uncanny Valley, I'm like, why is that a psychological condition?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not really. And the Uncanny Valley is where fake faces essentially don't look human, even though they're hyper realistic.
Right.
This
like robots or like really good CGI.
Yeah. There's something there, but it's not really like a psychological thing. It's really that the brain is really, really good at recognizing people, and so the brain just kind of picks up that there's something wrong. Yeah, it could look kind of like a real thing. I mean, a lot of these the renderings you can kind of see. You can kind of describe what's wrong, and the skin looks a little bit too plasticky or a little bit too translucent, or the way the light shines off it isn't quite right, or when something's animated, the animation isn't quite as good as a real human. It's just not off. There.
Yeah,
and in a way, I think it could be like it feels bad because if you saw a real human who looked like that, you would think that they were ill.
Yes.
And the human brain is kind of hardwired to avoid illness. Like if you see someone who's sick, you like don't want to touch them. Someone coughs near you, but you want to stay away from them. I mean, humans are naturally like driven away from things that kind of impinge upon their purity, like their health,
their sense of well-being,
it's like you see these robots or these CGIs of human faces, and it's like, that guy looks like he's sick.
Yeah, and that really came up in the beginning of like the PlayStation 4 era with what's the Elder Scrolls game that they've had like 72 different releases of? Skyrim.
The new games now that the AAA titles are they're trying to get there with the hyper realistic player characters and NPCs, and they suffer from this issue. It's it's like it's a game. It's
Yeah,
not,
it is.
but you still feel that sense that it's not quite right. But what's it going to be like when the games are actually so real that you can't tell?
Yeah, that's
especially when it's like virtual reality.
yeah, that is the exact reason why you will never ever I will die on this hill not put a interface on to go onto Facebook to interact with the meta or whatever the hell that they are
The
pushing.
metaverse.
Yeah, the metaverse, because it's just that's blowing my mind. I saw a picture of a whole stadium full of people with
Yeah.
these things on, and I was like, God, that's not healthy.
It looks
That's not
dystopian,
good.
doesn't it?
Yeah,
It looks
it's just
dystopian.
it's very disturbing.
There's a theory as to why aliens aren't here.
Is it because
Which
we're
is
horrible people?
no, it's that the metaverse is actually way more interesting and compelling than traveling through space.
Well, I know there's one theory that there are several extraterrestrial civilizations, but they never make it past the what we would call the singularity for artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Like they don't survive their
Well, but
singularity events.
it shouldn't really matter because after a singularity, after essentially a singularity. I mean, people talk about the singularity as being humans merge with machines, but really it's the machines taking over. I mean, that's essentially what's happening there. Like if you are melding your consciousness with a machine, you're probably not really. It's really just a machine has made a copy of you, and the machine is running with it. But if there's a singularity in alien civilizations, then you'd still expect robots and AI ships and things to be doing stuff. And why wouldn't they colonize the galaxy?
Then the question becomes for that is what motivation do they have to explore past their solar system?
What
or past
motivation do they have to do anything? I mean,
well, to sustain their existence, right?
Yeah. So to sustain your existence, that's the most important thing you can do is to get off your home planet.
Well, that's what Elon Musk keeps saying.
Yeah, if he gets hit by a rock, I mean, sure, like the first thing, you could probably do a twofold approach. One would be to set up very good defenses so that the asteroids get bombed away before they hit here. And then the second thing is to actually get off the planet. And the quickest way to do that is to colonize the solar system around you.
Right.
But your sun's going to die eventually, and there may be some other star on a collision course with your sun in a billion years' time. And if you're an AI, you might have that long of a time frame where you want to get away. And so you'd want to colonize other stars. So, I mean, if the imperative of an AI is to survive, it needs to colonize the galaxy and even other galaxies in the long term.
So this is blowing my mind. I never expected that you would have these views because my exposure to you is very limited because it's all just on Twitter, and I'll see you tweet a response to a video which everybody who is watching sees, and then you'll say, well, that's an airplane, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, it's a fucking airplane. But then the hate just starts. And I'm just like, oh, now I can't look at all these toxic responses.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to build is that we build a more inclusive UFO kind of community where we listen to the debunkers, you and everybody else, but we don't immediately respond with a knee-jerk, angry reaction. Because that's the wrong way to have a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the problem kind of boils down to kind of a misperception of motives.
Right.
Like, people think that I am trying to do a particular thing, and that because I'm trying to do that particular thing that they think that I'm doing, I'm trying to, they think I'm trying to discredit legitimate UFO investigators by saying things like, it's just a balloon.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm trying to do is trying to figure out what things are. But so the problem of communication is really that when I make a response, someone puts up a video and I say, well, that looks like a lens flare or whatever I think it looked like, or I don't know what it is. Often you can't tell what things are because it's just a light in the sky. People think that my response is an attempt to discredit the field of ufology.
Right.
And so they look at everything in that framework as if I'm some kind of I don't know, like
villain,
government shill.
you're like the
disinformation
Thanos.
agent.
You're like the Thanos of UFO Twitter.
I don't think I'm quite that. Maybe the Loki or something like that. But,
well, Loki did have a redemption arc, and I
yes,
think we can get there.
Yes, I mean everyone likes Loki. Essentially, he's a lovable character, even though he's a bit mischievous and evil. But yeah, if people think that you are setting out to try to discredit it, then straight away, no matter what you say, no matter how valid the things are that you say, they think that you're lying. People think that I'm being disingenuous, that I'm making stuff up, or I don't actually believe what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Something comes along and it looks like a balloon to me. I'm going to say it's a balloon, but people might think Mick West is just saying that's a balloon because he's trying to make it look like everything is balloons. But no, I'm trying to figure stuff out just the same as everybody else, even though I might have different biases and stuff like that. I'm genuinely trying to figure stuff out, and when I say things, I'm honestly saying what I believe and what I think something actually is.
And I appreciate that because there's a lot of tribalism in the UFO community, and sometimes it really is exhausting to me because I'll see these tweets or whatever, and I'm just like, oh my God, are these two people beefing again? Like, it's been 3 weeks, so let's have another fight. I'm just like, why do this?
Yeah.
We are actually, and I want to get your opinion on the UFO the UAP office in the Pentagon that was created under the new National Defense Authorization Act with the Gillibrand Amendment.
Yeah, very interesting. I kind of feel like there's been a lot of political pressure to do this, but not like not like a huge amount of political pressure as in loads of politicians are doing it. There's been a lobbying campaign, kind of a focused lobbying campaign that has been able to get a lot of media attention. Mm-hmm. Because it's such an interesting subject, the media goes crazy over it. So any little thing that comes up is the military spokespeople are going to be barraged by requests for more information, and that media interest fuels public interest, which fuels more media interest, and then people start calling the congressman, and it becomes relatively easy at that point to get some kind of legislation passed because there's so much media attention and public pressure to do that. And so people like, really where it came from was Chris Mellon and his various associates. Chris Mellon, he wrote the original language for the UAP report legislation that was in the COVID relief bill, and he's probably been deeply involved in drafting the Gillibrand amendment legislation. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of see like the various, I don't know, almost like little signatures and tells of the stuff where, it's kind of coming from the UFO community. It's not really coming from the government or the Pentagon.
Right.
there's this stuff like the transmedium craft and health effects and clusters around nuclear sites, and that's all essentially UFO. I would describe it as mythology, but other people would describe it as kind of accepted history. But that's neither here nor there. The point is, it's the UFO community that's exemplified by people like Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo and Hal Puthoff and Jim Semivan and Tom DeLonge. They've done an effective lobbying campaign that has resulted in this legislation getting passed. And it piggybacks upon a couple of things.
Yeah.
One of which is all this public interest and the media interest that I've described. And the other is the set of genuine issues that are related to UFOs. The type of things that were called out in the UAP report. Airspace clutter is one. Your training ranges, if they've got like drones and balloons and stuff cluttering up the airspace, that's an issue. Just simply the basic issue, if a Navy pilot can't identify something that pops up on his radar, that's a big problem. And then the possibility of foreign drones or whatever, or something new, or some type of atmospheric phenomena. These are real issues, but the UFO community has kind of put their stamp on it and got it to be kind of almost like framed in this, perhaps they're aliens context.
And so, I don't know if you know this, but I spent 19 months out at White Sands Missile Range, literally sleeping under the stars.
All right.
Now, it wasn't always in favorable weather conditions. A lot of times it was really cold and you're snuggled up in your sleeping bag, like. But I've seen lights moving across the sky and then they just 90 degree off.
Yeah.
And that's not, planes don't do 90 degree turns, for one. And there were no FAA blinky lights. But to move like that, it's a lot of weird things that you see out there, especially out in the desert. You don't have to be at White Sands, but if you're just out in the desert and you're paying attention to the sky.
Yeah. Probably helps. Being at White Sands, you got the proving grounds there.
Yeah.
Like where they test new technology and interesting.
That's exactly what we were doing.
Yeah.
Was testing new technology.
You might not have the FAA lights on things, or they could be. And there are, you say things don't move at 90 degrees, but from my experience, I've seen quite a few videos of things. This crops up with the chemtrails thing. It looks like a plane is making a 90-degree turn, but it's kind of forced perspective. The plane's moving across and then just makes a fairly slight turn. It can actually look like it's moving 90 degrees when it's really not. But I wasn't there, so I can't tell what.
Right. No, this was something moving with a purpose. So it was not slow. Yeah. It was a.
Dude, you should have got a video.
We weren't allowed to have phones.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Security clearances and stuff. You're not allowed to have a phone out there.
It's tricky. It's tricky with the lights in the sky thing. Like you were saying earlier, someone points like there's a light in. Maybe you were saying, or someone was saying this. I was just watching earlier, it's light in the sky. I mean, what can you do with it? It's just moving, and you can't really tell how far away it is or how big it is.
Yeah.
I mean, that means you can't tell how fast it's moving. It's quite tricky. I always say that the gold standard of UFO evidence would be to get something that appears to be moving in an unusual way from two separate locations with some kind of context, so you could see where the cameras were pointing at, and then you could triangulate it. You could actually create the 3D path, because the mathematics from 3D to 2D is absolute, but 2D to 3D gives a loads of possible solutions. Something's over there, but it could be here, here. Well, it's the other way, a small around, but it's tricky to. It's ambiguity.
It is
the issue is with UFOs,
and
the video and photos are ambiguous, and so it leaves it open to interpretation.
Right. So I want to show you a video that I found a long time ago. Well, not a long time ago, but when I first started my channel. So I'm going to click on it. Here we go. So this is a plane. Obviously, right there, the blinky thing. And then you can see this.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen this video before. It's kind of interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 5 things in a formation. They
Mm-hmm.
do shift a bit in formation, I think, as they go across the sky, and it gives you the illusion that it turns. I don't think it does actually turn. I think it's flying pretty much in a straight line. And what's happening is the camera is going overhead, and the camera has to turn.
To
So it
view
kind of
it
looks
move.
like. So here it looks like it's kind of going like this,
Like
but
it's
that's
arcing.
yeah, but that is the arc that things make across the sky when they're traveling in a straight line. It looks like an arc from the camera's perspective. Like if you took a panorama photograph of a straight line contrail, it looks like a big curve, like a big arc.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say
So
that's necessarily changing direction. I think it's something that's flying overhead. And yeah, I don't know. It's the type of thing I'd like to see more of. And I think the guy who took that concluded it was probably birds, because he actually has, and you see that the formation has changed a bit in shape. The lead object, bird,
moves up
is
ahead a
actually
little
ahead.
bit.
Yeah, he actually posted some other footage
Did
that
he?
showed the same intensity of brightness. This is an image intensifier, so
Yeah.
it's taking like dimly lit objects
Yeah, it's doing some
and
type of
making
night
them
vision
brighter.
monocle.
Yeah, it's photon multiplier. So you
Mm-hmm.
can tell by the greenness.
Yeah.
But I think what we're looking at here is 5 birds in formation, and it looks pretty unusual because it is just 5, and that
Right.
gives you this real nice delta shape. But he posted some other video of essentially the same thing, and it had like 7 or 8 birds, and they've got that more traditional kind of straggly, like one side is longer than the other. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what this is. I think it's birds. I know it sounds ridiculous because like people make jokes. Like Mick West thinks everything is seagulls, but you look at compare it with the
Somebody
other video.
so somebody asked if you had a seagull tattoo.
A seagull
I think
tattoo.
you
Yeah,
should get
I got
one. I
one
mean, why
tattoo.
not?
It's kind of seagull shaped.
But so one of the things I would like to see, especially in this space, is more evidence when it comes to videos. Like I want, and even with the 3 Navy videos, and I'm not going to dig too deep into them because the whole Mick West and the gimbal TikTok and Go Fast video has been beaten to death to the point to where I'm not going to sound like a broken record and just talk about them at all. I'm
Yeah.
just, but I think if with video evidence, what we need is like we need more. We need to kind of, you know.
Yeah, it's an issue though, isn't it? Because have you ever looked at MUFON, the MUFON database?
Yes, I'm actually in the MUFON database.
Like one of your sightings is in there.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. But they've got, I think, 120,000 cases now,
Yeah.
and probably like I don't know, like 20% or so of them have video. I'm just
Yeah. A
ballparking it
lot of
based on
them
because
don't. A lot of them are
yeah,
just written.
yeah, I think at least half of them have some kind of image, like a picture.
Mhm.
A lot of them are, I saw a bright orange light and it moved from east to west and then disappeared, which isn't very useful. And it's not a lot you can do with a case like that, except perhaps aggregate it into some kind of actual database that will be more useful if you can classify everything and then do some searches. But the interesting ones for me are the ones that have video. But there are literally thousands of them. There's 120,000 plus cases,
Yeah.
and a good fifth of them, I think, or maybe let's say 10%. If there's only 10% of them have video, that's 12,000 videos.
Yeah.
And
It's a lot. There's a
and yet
lot.
you're saying we need more videos. But of course, the
Yeah.
point is that 99% of those videos are just crap. They're stuff that's like someone's in their backyard and they see a light in the sky and they're holding the camera like this for some reason, or that they're in a car and they see a light behind a tree, or they see like you see lights coming towards you, and it's obviously a plane. So that, most of them are terrible, and even saying that, the ones that are not terrible aren't really interesting. They're still just lights in the sky. But sometimes they're maybe a little bit better. Like the one you just showed is a good example of a kind of a good UFO video. Even though I think it turned out to be birds, and we have the evidence to support that. It looks pretty cool. It looks like, what could it be?
A triangle.
Like a plane? Yeah, it's a triangle. It looks like a craft with 5 lights around the edge, like a novel TR3B, maybe the TR4B.
I don't think the TR3B is a real thing. People don't like that I say that, and I'm going to keep saying it, but...
Yeah, I don't think it is either, but it's an archetype in UFO sightings that people actually see triangles, and there's probably a reason for that.
Most of the TR3B idea pretty much came from X-Files.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, because they had these government UFOs in the show that were flown by secret pilots, and they abducted people. And they had some really great episodes, but I don't think that's what it is. But this, if anybody's wondering, this is how you film a UFO video. You take your phone, you shake it, and you throw it. I got great video, guys. Like,
yeah, or you film it and then you stop filming straight away.
Yeah, you just
as soon as it gets interesting.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. There are some cases. There was one, I can't remember where it was, but it was a nice video. It was a silver sphere with some pointy things coming off it. It looks like a Sputnik, and the guy filmed it for quite a long time. And if it was a genuine, if it was a genuine UFO, that would have been great footage. But it didn't do anything interesting.
So I think I know what video you're referencing.
Yeah, it hung in the air exactly like a balloon. I mean, I could probably find it on Metabunk Sputnik or something like that. Metabunk.
So I think I can find it on my YouTube
channel. It's the Rick Ibarra, San Diego Silver Spear video by Rick Ibarra, and the YouTube video is called the San Diego Sphere / Witness Testimony.
So you and I had a conversation about this video right here.
We did.
Sort of. You wanted me to send you the raw video, and I was able to send you some of it. So that's the picture, and this is.
So I remember.
It takes a while for my phone to focus, but there it is. Yeah,
that one. I'm 99.99% sure it was a plane. Yeah, I think we tried to find which plane it was, but I couldn't. I could not find it.
Right, the only plane that was in the air, according to
Flight Radar 24,
was 10 or 15 miles in the wrong direction, going the wrong direction.
See, the reason I think it's a plane is that it looks exactly like a plane. And I've seen a lot of planes that look exactly like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got the white fuselage, and then you see the kind of little indentations / outdentations of the wings.
The winglets?
The wings, the entire wing is there. It's just you can't see it because the plane is lit from above. So you see the fuselage because you can see the sides of the fuselage.
Yep.
But you can't see the wings because all you can see of the wings is the underneath wings. And wings, the plane's lit from above.
Yeah,
sun is always above a plane.
So one of the things that I find, I guess, confusing about this is its orientation right now is like a 45-degree upward. It's climbing.
No, it's probably level flight. It's the same illusion that we saw earlier with the five dots, like when something flies overhead.
Yeah,
like I say, it looks like it's turning from the camera's perspective. So I mean, if you can kind of imagine something flying directly overhead, it's going to look like it's flying straight up because it's flying directly overhead. And if it's flying a bit to the side, it looks like it's flying kind of up like this. So if it starts out and if it's flying, say in another way, it's like 45 degrees.
Right.
But if you keep following it, it's going to look like it comes down the other side. And so when it's flying away from you, it looks like it's flying down at 45 degrees. And that's it flying in a straight line directly over, well, not directly, like say, like 5 miles to one side of you. So there's a plane 5 miles up in the air, 5 miles to the side, flying kind of past you. So you see it off in the distance at first. It's going to kind of look like it's going up at 45 degrees. Then when it gets to the point where it's closest to you, and this is like a little trick you can do, like, when something is perfectly, it looks like it's going neither up nor down, that's when it's at its closest point to you. And then it'll start to look like it's going down. And you'll see that in this video. It looks like it's going up, and then it's like going horizontal, and then it's going down. But it's actually probably in a more or less straight line. Yeah.
See, it was
neither climbing or descending.
So that was weird to me because one, I lived near at that point in time. I lived near 1, 2, 3, 4 airports, so I was very accustomed to seeing planes flying in the sky, and one of them being an Air Force base, and the other one being NAS Oceana, the Navy base where they fly all their F-18s out of, and Langley where they fly all their F-22s out of. So I'm very used to seeing planes all the time in the air. But when I saw that, I was like, it doesn't look right. So to me, it was just like, and there was no noise. There was absolutely no engine noise or anything like that. And it was during COVID, so it wasn't like it was a heavy flight time anyways.
Yeah. No, I understand like your perspective on that and how it seems strange, but it's kind of like a pet topic of mine, planes that are like that. I think I probably sent you the Tic Tac behind trees video.
I think you did, yeah.
Yeah, it was showing how with the image stabilization makes things move weird, and also the low resolution of the camera makes wings disappear.
Yeah.
I think perhaps the illusion that we're talking about here, where it looks like it's turning, is maybe something to think about a bit more in understanding what you're actually looking at as a plane. I mean, you think it's going up at 45 degrees, but it's really not. It's just flying horizontally. But I've seen the exact same thing hundreds of times before, and I know that maybe sounds like I'm the expert, trust me, but I'm just kind of trying to point you towards things that you can look at. I mean, if you try to look for planes doing something similar, like you want a small plane at a high altitude that's passing you at about the same distance away from you as it is high. So if there's a plane at like 30,000 feet, that's about very roughly like 5.5, 6 miles up. So if it's going to pass you about 5 or 6 miles away from you, it's going to look like that 45 degrees up and then across, and then it looks like it's descending 45 degrees on the other side. I actually have a post on Metabunk. I think it was like estimating passing distance from horizon angle or something like that. It was for contrails. If you see a contrail off in the distance and it's at 45 degrees, you know it's going to pass near you. So that's like a good contrail in terms of taking photographs of it, because if it's at 45 degrees or more from horizontal, you know it's going to pass nearby.
Yeah. So I think we should call contrails what they are, exhaust fumes that are
they're not
frozen in the atmosphere.
They're not exhaust fumes. They're condensation. The funny thing about contrails, well, it's not funny. It's just like one of the fun science facts about contrails is that most of what you see in a contrail didn't come out of the engine. It's actually water that's in the atmosphere already.
Is it being heated by the engine and then refreezes?
No. What happens is the air is just not humid enough for clouds to form.
Okay.
And when the plane comes by, it burns fuel. So it's burning a hydrocarbon in oxygen. So it creates carbon dioxide and H2O, which is water, in about equal amounts. Well, not equal amounts, but quite a lot of water.
Yeah.
If you burn a gallon of jet fuel, it actually makes 1.3 gallons of water. With the added oxygen, it actually ends up being more water than the jet fuel. And so jet exhaust is actually just higher humidity air. And so it's raising the humidity enough for a cloud to form. And there's also some like condensation nuclei, but they're not actually necessary, but they're there. So it makes a cloud form, but most of the water in a resultant contrail is actually already there in the atmosphere. It's just kind of adding a bit of water that just triggers the formation of the cloud, and then the cloud can actually kind of form and grow based on the existing water. So it's not jet exhaust that you're seeing, and it's not even like all the water that's come out of the jet engine. It's actually mostly water in the air. In fact, a contrail is really just a type of cloud.
Well, they look like clouds.
They are clouds. It's a type of cloud. It's in the International Cloud Atlas by the World Meteorological Organization. They're called cirrus homogenitus, which means man-made cirrus.
Yeah. Okay, I got one more video.
Alrighty.
This is not UFOs.
Oh.
But it is part of the paranormal phenomenon. So this video, I'm going to give you a little pretext. This video, according to the people who shot it, is not cut in any way, and there's only 3 people, and all 3 of them can be seen on the video.
Okay.
So here we go. I really need to hit the "Don't Ask Me Again" button. All right. Oh,
Scariest video you'll ever watch.
that's what they say.
We'll see. Got a Blair Witch vibe here.
It's a house out in the woods.
Yeah.
I think this is in Georgia.
I must say I'm getting kind of like a staged vibe to this video, even though nothing's happened yet.
Now, before that seems weird that that switch had "do not turn off" on it. In a lot of older houses where people have done their own electrical work, sometimes a light switch will be connected to an outlet.
Right.
So they'll put that on there.
I've seen signs like that before. It doesn't
Yeah,
seem
just
odd.
so people don't think that it's like, oh my God, that's so weird.
Swinging pots.
Well, look at this.
Oh, yes.
Now, back here.
Yeah.
Clearly, there's no chairs on the table. And now there are.
Yeah, no, it's obviously a ghost put them there. It's no other explanation. But I guess like what we should do is try to consider what the possible explanations are. I mean, one is that a ghost, a poltergeist, added the chairs. And the other one, the only other one, is that a human did it.
Or maybe 2 or 3 people.
Well, yes.
I mean, it happened. It happened very
One
quickly.
or more. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take that long to put 3 chairs up on a table, especially if you practice it ahead of time. You're ready, go, done. Dive behind the counter.
Of
So
course,
I think
they go into the kitchen to explore, take it down. Oh, this is where they hear a noise upstairs. So they, the hell is this?
I think you skipped the next video.
Yeah, there's a ad.
Yeah.
Okay, so he looks back in the kitchen. The chairs are still there. and then they appear behind him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I gotta say, it looks fake. It's not
So
like
they're right there.
You can say, yeah, but you know,
So I want you to see how fast this happens.
right.
They're right there. Takes a couple steps.
Yeah, well, it was 5 seconds. Well, at least 5 seconds, or maybe 6 or 7. But yeah, maybe it's. Let's say you set out to recreate that video. How hard do you think it would be to recreate if you were given like say a day to practice, and you had like say 4 or 5 people working on it?
If you had,
And that's
really,
even that is saying like there's no cuts in it. Yeah, there might be. You couldn't tell if there was a cut there, but if you swing a camera around rapidly, it's not that hard to kind of blend that in with a different.
You would,
yeah.
The only thing I haven't done with this video was put it in my video editor and looked at it frame by frame.
Yeah, there's some amazing videos out there that special effects people make that are astonishing in how realistic that they look. Then there's magic shows where people do things on stage that look completely impossible.
Well, that's perspective too. Like when you go to magic shows, because they've mapped out how the stage is, they know exactly where they can move and how they can move.
But here, like I think the only way this would work as a fake is if they rehearsed it ahead of time. Yeah, no one's going to be like, let's do some funny stuff whilst I'm moving the camera around, and then these chairs. They had to have planned that in advance. But so we've got 2 options, and I guess the question is, why would you pick the supernatural option as being the most likely when you've got a much more reasonable option of them faking it as being the answer? Now, a lot of the times in the supernatural community and in other communities as well, including the UFO community, there is this deference given to eyewitnesses. And so if somebody makes a claim and they say, I saw this, or they say, here's a video that I took and it's real and you can see like the doll moving in it, then people within the community feel like, oh, here's someone else within the community who makes this claim. I should believe them by default. And I think that's perhaps leads to a lot of unwarranted belief. You've really got to examine the video on its merits and think, what is the most likely thing that is happening here? That ghosts are arranging chairs into pyramids in a kitchen whilst people are wandering around with flashlights, or someone is faking a ghost video. Really out of those 2 things, which is the more likely? And if you're really into ghost videos, then maybe you're going to think that the ghosts are doing it. But why?
Well, I think
how, and it violates all known physics and everything we know about science versus somebody making up a video.
It does. And one of the things that I think, so I spent my first year that I had my YouTube channel, I was doing top 5 ghost videos and top 5 UFO videos. And I'll tell you, when you take a lot of these videos that people are like, oh my God, this is a scary video, and you put it in a video editor and you slow it down and you zoom and you look at it, you probably like 90% of the time, the conclusion that the person editing the video comes up with is, oh, this is fake.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like one of the biggest tools of ghost videos is fishing line. I had some somewhere. Because you do your video at a certain resolution, you can't see the fishing line.
Yeah,
but things like the chairs being stacked, it's something that looks like super impossible, but it could be done. I suppose you'd also have to think about the audio aspect of that, because that would make a bit of noise, so that might have to be edited out. But you would hear the simplest explanation.
Unless they took their shoes off and they were fucking barefooting around in the kitchen to put the chairs on. Yeah. All right, everybody go away. It would take at least 2 or 3 people to do that with how fast the camera pans over.
Yeah.
If there isn't a cut.
I don't, I'm not really that interested in ghost videos because I think there's so much stuff that is, essentially fake. I do look at them. I wouldn't
Yeah.
personally bother with that one unless it was getting a lot of attention.
It's got
But there are
over
people that
2
do.
million
Like
views.
2
1.3
million?
million.
Yeah, I guess.
So, yeah, it's got a lot of attention.
That's pretty good. I wonder if there's a guy who does analyze them called Kenny Biddle, who's really good at this type of thing. He's kind of like the go-to guy for analyzing ghost videos. He's probably actually already looked at this one because if it's got 2 million views, he's probably looked at it. So we could ask him, see what he has to say.
Yeah, and so like when it comes to the like the ghost videos and that stuff, if everybody uses their little EM detectors, their EMF detectors, their K2 meters, but you have a tri-band.
Yeah,
correct?
Trifield. I have a Trifield meter, which they're similar types of things. I mean, it's marketed to people who are paranoid about EMF, and it's set ridiculously low. So it's always like bumping off the top of the scale already, even though there's nothing really going on here. It's my Bluetooth earpiece, so I'll probably like get it going. That's probably the Bluetooth right there.
Yeah.
But obviously I'm going to die.
Yeah.
But this is like 1,000th of the federal limits for RF exposure.
But
so
one of the things that I see is they use dual band EMF detectors, which aren't really accurate. You have to actually like rotate the detector because you need a tri-band for it to actually pick up a real, EMF field.
Yeah.
If you're using a dual band, you're really, if you read the directions for it, you're supposed to take it and then turn it to get an accurate reading.
Well, it's like if you're selling a ghost detector, it's kind of a bit bogus from the start because there isn't really any accepted science as to how to detect ghosts. Right. So really you're selling something that they know will cause the dial to wobble around if you move it through a house where the electrical fields are varying to some degree. So it's not, I don't know. It's I can't. It's difficult for me to take ghost hunting seriously. I know a lot of people do.
It's difficult for me to take it serious.
But yeah, if you look at the actual science behind it, and it's a lot of people want to find a ghost. If people go on a ghost hunt, it's kind of like the CE5 thing. People who pay lots of money, or even don't pay money, but just go out into the desert, they've invested something in that. You put all this effort into meditating to summon aliens. It kind of makes you more receptive to the idea that what you are seeing is some kind of alien presence or whatever it is, or that what you are feeling or seeing or hearing in a house is a ghost. But they generally do not pass the hard science analysis.
Well, we have as the elected representative of this chat, I need to invoke the bottled water constitution and implement Article 5 and have Mick do a shelf tour.
A shelf tour.
Everybody wants to know what's behind your shelf. Like, people are those juggling balls? Like,
yeah, those are juggling balls. So the green and the red balls are juggling balls, and the ones to this side of it. Let's see. I'll use this camera. All right. So these ones here are my juggling balls that I use. Right there are just some kind of metallic juggling. Oh, those are solid steel balls. Which like I used a while back for some experiment. Yeah, essentially solid steel bearings. Yeah, they're kind of a fun science thing. You bang them together with a piece of paper in between them, and the concentrated energy will burn a hole in the paper.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun little thing. Mm-hmm. What else have I got? Oh, there's some orgonite that I got to test orgonite to see if that works. Show you that. Yeah, it's my orgonite pyramid.
Oh, cool.
Which doesn't do anything, but it's kind of fun. It's a pretty little thing. It's like a little paperweight. Then I have a levitating magnet, which is a small magnet between two pieces of graphite, or graphene, sorry, not graphite.
Yeah.
Small model of World Trade Center 7. That's an award I got, a probe award from.
Yes, the Golden Probe.
Yes, from the Golden Probe Award.
Yes, from that one time I was abducted.
Yeah, it's very good. It lights up as well, which is it's a lot of fun. I don't know if you can see it lighting up there. It's like flashing. Yeah, it's got this little antenna, which I just added afterwards. But anyway, let's turn that off.
But so a lot of people don't know because I did the audio for one of the award sections, and I completely forgot to say my name and everything. So like, you just hear this random dude saying this, and it was me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was fun. When I saw you that you accepted and did your own video accepting your Golden Probe, I was like, okay, so Mick's a normal person. Because
or am I? Maybe it's all part of my psychological ploy trained by the CIA, which is what some people actually think.
Well, from what I've seen on Twitter, you faked a ski resort trip.
That was funny. Yeah, there's this one guy who thinks I'm faking everything. He says that he was just questioning my skiing photos as an example of the way I approach evidence. Saying, well, how can you prove that is true? This is the way you do it. But he started questioning all kinds of other things as well. Like he was accusing some other guy of being me and saying that I made up an interview, which I didn't. It was like this interview with an anonymous source, so I couldn't tell who it was, and that made him very suspicious. And there was things in the interview that he thought were wrong, so he assumed I made it up.
Yeah.
So I think perhaps he did actually think at some point that I faked my ski photos. But yeah, it's the thing, like when people get this idea that you have this motivation and they start to think that you're being disingenuous, then they start to see everything that you say through that lens.
Yeah.
And then that becomes this for them, I think, a feedback loop of confirmation. It's like, oh, there's Mick lying again. Where it's just me saying more stuff, but now they think I'm lying because they thought I was lying about something else. But yeah, I try to make a very specific point of never lying.
Yeah, and I think one of the things when we look at the three Navy, okay, fine, I'll bring it up. When we look at the three Navy videos, I guess I can't help myself.
They're just so compelling.
They're so compelling. But we got 3 videos. And when I say we need more data, without the radar data, without all the other collaborating data, oh, English idiot.
Corroborating?
Yeah, yeah, whatever. Whatever it is. But without that data, we can't make a truly educated conclusion.
Yeah.
Without all the flight data, without all the radar data, without everything else. Because even weapon systems, and I've operated quite a few of them myself, if you ignore 75% of the data and just look at the video, because the video is like a quarter of the picture. Mm-hmm. Everything else is telling you why the video is important. Even when you're using a remote gun system and you're looking at a laptop sitting in the back of a vehicle and you're got a joystick moving a 50 cal around, just because something moves, you don't shoot at it.
Sure.
You have to have all of the data. And we don't have all the data to these videos. And I think somebody said the videos are actually cropped.
I don't think they are. I think because they all show the same on-screen display,
right? And
that seems consistent with other like FLIR displays, like the one that you see in DCS and the Digital Combat Simulator has the exact same symbology around the edges. So I don't think there's anything cropped, unless you mean cut, like shortened.
Yeah, shortened and. It's
I mean, there's certainly going to be more video because apparently, like they're recording the whole time. So this is
every time they take off.
Yeah, this is a clip of a longer video, and the longer video, I mean, that would be just so amazingly useful.
It would. It
It
would be
would.
great if we had it, right?
It would be. It would be awesome. You could determine so many things and resolve so many questions.
Yeah.
One of the big issues with at-flare video, that's the type of camera that's used, well, the type of the weapons, the targeting pod that's used, is that there's no other examples of this quality. The very best examples ever seen in human history of at-flare footage are gimbal and go fast, which is kind of bizarre, really.
Well, no,
Yeah,
I've seen some really great video in the military of AC-130s just smoking people with their with their Gatling guns and their 108.
like beer at-flare.
Yeah. Like
Yeah, well,
literally smoking like 30 or 40 people, but
yeah, no. Well, there was a few things like leaked by WikiLeaks that showed like gun camera footage or targeting pod footage of stuff like that. But I don't think there's anything that shows the same type of thing.
as far as like UFOs go, no.
No, it really just the screen layout of an at-flare system with the NAR slash FOV, WFOV, and the 2x zoom and the focus, and then the status line, and then the LNS on one side and the heading on there, and that whole array of things like that. You don't see that on other videos.
Not generally released to the public.
Yeah, there's a few like tour videos that people do. Where a squad does like this fun recap of their year. They sometimes stick a little bit of footage in there, but it's usually not very good quality. And the only ones where I've seen with the same symbology is when they filmed it from inside the cockpit, and you kind of see it down there, and you can't really see anything. So, if there's any footage out there, why is there no other footage out there? I mean, it has to be essentially because it's not cleared for public release. It's kind of classified. They don't want it out there. So,
well, and what I think a lot of people need to understand is these are state-of-the-art weapon systems. And we are in a dynamic environment as a country, as a military, that we cannot just release a lot of this stuff. Like, it would be detrimental if an F-22 encountered a UFO and made a amazing, lovely video that shows us everything that anybody could ever want and is like the gold standard of a UFO, and nobody can dismiss it. But it was filmed by a classified platform that you can't. Like you.
It's. I mean, I think probably the more likely thing is that didn't happen, and there's lots of footage that's of perhaps stuff like gimbal and go fast, which probably doesn't show UFOs. That again, they're just simply not releasing because it was filmed on a classified system, or it was part of a training process or an engagement or whatever that is just simply classified by default, or they just tend not to clear it for public release. And that's why all these people are doing these requests for videos and they're not releasing them, and people think that's because they're trying to cover up UFOs, but it's really just the SOP. It's just the way things are. They just don't release that video. And obviously there's no boring video out there from the at-flare either. It's not like they're trying to cover up the boring stuff. They're just trying to not release any at-flare footage because it could be analyzed by adversaries to try to find flaws in the targeting system.
Well, I think also at the same time we have to look at some of the sightings, like when they talk about the nuclear launch facilities and UFOs showing up there and initiating launches and beams being shot down into the silos. That's concerning because some of this stuff happened back in the 70s.
Yeah, the 60s.
60s, yeah, and in the 70s. Yeah. And this wasn't a time where Russia and especially China were technologically leapfrogging anybody. Their economies couldn't handle it. The USSR fell specifically because they poured as much of their money as they could into fighting this Cold War with the US, and it just completely bankrupted them. And if they had that technology during that time, things would have went different.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that the Russians were deactivating nukes by remote flying craft that appeared as red balls of light.
Yeah.
And yeah, essentially my position on that is I don't think that actually happened. I don't think that UFOs deactivated nukes, and I think that probably what happened is there was a combination of technical failure somehow that caused these nukes to go offline, and at some point somebody saw a UFO, because you know from your own experience, if you're watching the sky, you're going to see UFOs eventually. And you read the UAP report as a section. Well, it's not a section; it's a very small report. It has a paragraph.
Yeah, it's 7 pages, and
Yeah,
two of
I
them are
think this
the
was on
intro
page
and the
4 or 5, top of page
Yeah.
4 or 5, and it's about clustering. And it
Uh-huh.
said that there's some apparent clusters, and they were probably referring to this nuke thing, because that's the one that, people will get, like, it's a big driver. It's a thing that people can use to congressmen to say, oh, these things are hovering around our nuclear installations. We've got to do something.
Yeah.
But they say in the reports it could be a reporting bias, because high security installations have lots of cameras, and they have lots of people looking out to see things, and they have
Yep.
this mandate, not a mandate, they have this directive to report anything that they see. Whereas, like a guy at Walmart isn't going to report everything they see in the sky, and he probably isn't even looking at the sky. So
No,
you're going to see a lot more sightings around nuclear sites. It doesn't mean there's actually UFOs around them. It just means that there's more people looking.
So what I will say is, in my mind, one of two things happened at these nuclear facilities. Being a former soldier and having been on guard and done all this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Either somebody messed up so bad just doing their normal day-to-day stuff. They screwed up so bad. And the problem is that some of these missiles went into launch mode, and that's an issue. So either they pushed the wrong button, or they were just sleeping and they had their foot up on the console and hit something, and something went wrong, or a guard was sleeping and woke up and was like, "Oh my god!" I either that or something actually happened. And if the military's taking it seriously,
I don't know. Like, I think the most famous case is the Eagle Flight case, which I think is the Robert Salas. If I may be getting the name wrong.
Salas. That the last name you got right.
Yeah, and I think what happened there was that they went offline. There was like 10 missiles, and the systems all went offline at a similar time, and they investigated and they couldn't figure out why it was. But if it was someone like knocking a switch with his foot, they would have been able to figure that out.
Yes.
And they think it was some kind of electrical interference. It's like some kind of, not like EMP exactly, but some kind of burst of radio waves or something that triggered something, or just some weird static electricity or something. But I don't know if they ever figured it out, but I'm not sure if they would tell you if they did. It's one of those things, if they investigated, they're not necessarily going to tell you. But things go wrong from time to time. The military doesn't have infallible hardware. I mean, you said that you've seen a lot of things with an X on them. Does that mean that they didn't work?
No, that means they're experimental.
Oh, okay. Well, so a lot of that probably didn't work then, because it's experimental.
Some of it didn't work.
Yeah.
Some of it we broke on purpose, but that's neither here nor there.
But nuclear missile silos, they try to make them as foolproof as possible, but it's kind of hard because it's a difficult type of thing to test. Because you've got to have a full missile silo to test it. So it's something unexpected could go wrong.
So what a lot of people don't know is the easiest way to make something foolproof is to make it extremely simple. Stupid simple.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So if you make it so simple, I mean, I'm not going to say this is exactly how it works, because if I say this is exactly how it works, somebody will show up at my door. But if you have a system that is launched by two keys, that means it's a simple electrical circuit. And the way to close that electrical circuit is by closing those two keys, which initiates the launch sequence. And that's how it works. I'm not going to
I
say
think it's a bit
that's
more complicated than that. But
it's you would think, but they're still using floppy disks in the military to run systems.
they just phased that out. They used to use 8-inch floppy disks, but they started phasing that out a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you saw, I don't know if you watched Jeopardy. I'm a big Jeopardy fan, but they had a guy on Jeopardy like a month ago, and he was a big tall guy, and he said he went to the missile silos, and he said that he was actually his wingspan, as he described it, was big enough so he could actually personally turn both keys at the same time.
Oh, I'm 6'3". I actually have a 6'7".
I think he was about 6'8" or something ridiculous, but
yeah, I have a,
but anyway,
I have a 6'7" wingspan.
I mean, your point is good that like simple systems are more foolproof, but it doesn't mean they can't go wrong. And
they can.
Nuclear launch thing isn't as simple as just turning two keys. There's also the codes that you've got to enter to actually get
the code energizes this. The code energizes the system, and the two keys close it.
Yeah, so there's something in there that's actually reasonably complicated, and that failed. It's just a circuit failed essentially, and nobody knows why, or at least they're not telling us why. But what does it? It's one of those fun things that you kind of lose sight of it because you start delving into the details, and then you think like, what's actually going on here? Why did in the 1960s aliens briefly deactivate a nuclear facility? If that's what supposedly happened, I mean, how does that make any sense in the context of them never doing it again afterwards? And nobody seeming to really change anything due to that, and the army just conducting an investigation that just led to the conclusion that it was some kind of weird electrical glitch. I mean, what was the point, or what was the motivation? I mean, of course, you can't figure out aliens' motivation, and you could hypothesize about something, but it just seems so ridiculous. And just the simple fact of some kind of glitch in the system, plus regular people thinking they see UFOs, maybe. It seems like a much simpler explanation than aliens doing this weird one-time thing for no apparent reason that had no effect.
Well, so technically, to the people who see UFOs, by definition, if they are unidentified to the person, it's an unidentified flying object if they can't identify it.
Sure, yeah.
Now,
I'd go with that.
When I have my own theory, and I don't ever definitively say this is what the phenomenon is. I just have like 3 or 4 theories that float around in my head. I'm like, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. One of the ones that I like is that we have 65 million years of history between big giant birds and lizards walking around, eating each other. And then a big giant rock hits and everything dies. And then animals come back. And then 65 million years later, we show up. And we tool around in the dirt for probably longer than we realize that we have. Just because we found sites in South America that are way older than the Native Americans coming over the land bridge into Alaska and coming down after the cave bears died. So they were like, oh, well, maybe people were sailing across the Pacific and coming to South Africa and doing whatever they were doing because they found all these artifacts in caves and they dated them and they're way too old to be Incan or Mayan or anything else. So how do we know that something did not evolve on this earth 3 or 4 million years ago and then leave and just come back later and go, oh, crap. Who the hell are these monkeys running around blowing shit up?
Yeah. And that, you don't know, but it's not really any different from how do we know that aliens aren't visiting? You don't.
Well, not until they land on the White
Sure, sure.
House lawn.
But you're postulating a possible explanation of ancient humans, ancestors leaving and then coming back in a kind of Planet of the Apes scenario to a different world. And there's other postulates, like Elizondo talks about the possibility of extra-dimensional beings, like from some kind of weird parallel dimension. But they're all essentially the same thing. You're talking about non-human intelligence in the sense of not modern humans. If it's people who left millions of years ago and come back, they're essentially aliens at this point.
Yeah.
And extra-dimensional beings, they're aliens. People from another planet, they're aliens. So non-human intelligence, call it whatever you like. All you're doing here is you're postulating, some kind of other being responsible for these craft. And what it boils down to is, what is the evidence for that? It's not like, is it possible? Yeah, sure, it's possible. It's possible that beings are coming from another dimension. It's possible we're living in a simulation and these are some kind of, I don't know, garbage collection robots that are just
cleaning up
out.
the code of the
like
simulation.
The Langoliers cleaning up the past by eating it.
For those of you who don't know, that's a Stephen King reference.
Yes, it's
not the best movie. Don't watch the movie. Read the book.
It's one of the more philosophically interesting Stephen King short stories. It's people get trapped in the past. I can't remember how it happens. The plane gets struck by lightning or something like that.
Yeah, and it ends up in like a white space.
Yeah,
or something.
Yeah.
They're like they're landed at an airport.
Yeah, but it's kind of like a glitch in the Matrix thing, and then things are coming around and they're eating it. But you could say maybe Langoliers are real. Maybe that actually happens in the past, and maybe there's a way of getting into that position. But you're postulating these hypothetical realities. Yeah. And if you don't actually have any evidence for those hypothetical realities, then it's just kind of like science fiction storytelling. It's kind of fun. But if we can't tell either way, or if there's no real evidence either way, other than an absence of evidence, then it's just kind of it's a fun story to think about. But maybe investigate if you want. If you think it's true, go and investigate. Try to gather evidence. But
so I do think it's important that we do start to investigate maybe the crazier ideas, because what we're starting to find when science starts looking into this, into the multiverse or alternate realities with quantum entanglement and everything like that, they're starting to say, well, maybe this stuff does exist. Maybe there are other realities. So if there are other realities, is there the possibility that something from another reality can come into our reality? So maybe that should be investigated. If these membranes between realities are permeable.
It's a very attractive idea. And it's the type of idea that I've, liked since I was young. And, part of the reason it's attractive is that it gives kind of hope about life after death. And this is something I think Leslie Kane was talking about on Chris Lato's podcast a couple of days ago, maybe yesterday. That there's actually a connection between belief in an afterlife and interest in UFOs. Not sure exactly what she said, but someone characterized it as that way. But the idea that there are other realities that perhaps these UFOs are coming from, like other dimensions, or that maybe they're time travelers or something, or that maybe maybe we're living in a simulation. Mm-hmm. It kind of gives you hope that you can kind of transcend this little flesh and bones,
the plane that we're on right now,
and then move into a different plane of reality, the one that the UFOs are coming from, which sounds great. It would be very interesting, and perhaps this wonderful transmogrification, the childhood's end type thing. Humanity evolves to the next level, and people like that idea, and that's part of why people are fascinated by the possibility of something that exists, which is so much beyond our current realm of reality than what we actually have, because it opens up this whole other world that could possibly transcend the physical reality and transcend death itself.
So what I like is that you just brought up something that is maybe people might not realize or they do realize, but we're not inventing new concepts. We're actually rehashing thousands and thousands of year old concepts from early human consciousness about the future of our existence after we die and all these other realities, and where does our consciousness go, and what do our chakras do. And there's several different types of religions and beliefs that talk about this. And when we talk about the UFO subject and them being like extra dimensional beings or whatever, we're kind of feeding into ancient ideology of the human existence.
Yeah. Well, I think it's something that's just, it's like part of the human condition. It's like we know that we're born, we grow old, and we die.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit depressing. And so people have different ways of dealing with that, and perhaps which are almost like biological in a way. Like you don't want to be so depressed about life that you just kill yourself. So you think about what's the point of life, and then that kind of leads to what happens after you die, and then the idea of an existence of an afterlife leads itself to the idea of what if we can access other realms while still alive? What if we can talk to the dead? What if we can do magic? It's very easy and fun mindset to slip into. I was young. I used to think about it all the time, and I still, I recognize the allure of essentially believing in some kind of magic or something that's so incredibly advanced that it's indistinguishable from magic. It's a fun thing to think about. I used to, when I was like 10 or so, I used to think I had psychic powers because I got lucky, picking some cards at some point.
Yeah.
I used to try to. I did a what do we call it? A survey on Twitter where I asked, "Have you ever tried to use the Force?"
Yeah.
And it's like everyone's done it, pretty much. You think I try to move this thing with the power of my mind. You just try to do it. Just why not? Why don't you try to do it? If it works, it would be amazing. It hasn't worked yet, though. Unfortunately, probably won't.
Well, I think speaking of consciousness, we have a very limited understanding of what consciousness is, and I think we have a very arrogant understanding of what consciousness is. And anybody who's ever seen dolphins interact or whales interact and mourn, or elephants mourn, all these animals experience a wide range of emotions, and even dogs experience a wide range of emotions. And anybody who's just like, humans are the ultimate pinnacle of consciousness on this planet are just so arrogant and uneducated, because I don't think they realize how other animals interact and do the things that they do.
Yeah, something I think that's really interesting about consciousness is that most people don't appreciate just how different individual people experience consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
There's a variety of conditions that people have where the way they perceive the world is very, very different to the way other people perceive the world. There's the synesthesia, where people kind of perceive things like sounds as colors. There's aphantasia, where people are unable to draw up a mental picture. So that you tell them to picture an apple, they can't picture the apple. Or do they try to picture someone's face, they can't picture it. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole bunch of similar types of things. And then there's people who are blind or deaf, or there's people who are neurologically different in various ways. And all these people exist in the world, and there's going to be a kind of similar cross section in any large group of people. So you take people like, say, UFO believers. There's going to be all kinds of different types of consciousness and the way people perceive reality and the way they see themselves in reality and how they relate to the universe and see themselves within the universe. Within, say, UFO Twitter, there's going to be people who, when you have an experience of seeing a UFO and you can picture it and describe it, they're kind of incapable of understanding what you even saw because they can't make mental models, visual mental models. They make them in a very different way. And there may be other people who, when they see a UFO, they perceive it in kind of a synesthetic way of seeing colors and different feelings and different sensations relating to what they see, and it makes communication very difficult because we kind of assume that the way we individually perceive the world out there and the way when I close my eyes and think about the world and try to picture what I saw and how things work, it could be a completely different way of thinking than somebody else has, and that can lead to, when I try to explain it, I hit a brick wall, and vice versa. Someone's trying to explain to me what their experience was, and I'm just not getting it because I can't get inside their brain. I don't know how their consciousness works. So I think consciousness is a very complicated problem that is in some ways oversimplified by people saying, what is the issue of consciousness? But there's so many different types of consciousness.
There are.
Kind of foolish to try to just pigeonhole everybody together. I mean, everyone's different, and you have to keep that in mind when you're trying to communicate with people.
Absolutely. And I generally try to keep this to an hour. And
gone over.
Well, I'm not mad. This has been great. What a great conversation. What a great start to the year.
Yeah, it's fun stuff.
Mick, thank you for being on the show. I hope some of the people in the chat get a understanding that you're just a person. And one of the things that I want to say is when you tweet people and you disagree with them, understand that there is a actual person on the other end of your tweet. You're not tweeting at a robot. He's an actual person. So let's be respectful and let's not turn it into a circus, because our community does not need the 3-tent circus ideology. We need to be grounded and we need to do this the right way. And Mick, thank you for coming on. Thank you for doing what you do. I don't always agree with you.
Sure. Who does?
But I do thank you for being open and willing to come onto the show and have a conversation. This has been an awesome conversation. I would really just let this go, but I know you got stuff to do. I got stuff to do.
I do have to go. So
I'm gonna throw you in the back, and then I'm gonna do my outro.
All right. Well, thank you very much for a very interesting conversation, and thank you for the kind of overtures of peaceful communication that you're throwing out there. I think that's something that's needed. I don't think we need to be like berating people about it, but it's just something that's just a good thing to try to encourage. And I appreciate you doing that, and thank you for an interesting conversation.
Well, thank you, and let everybody know where they can find you.
Oh, they can find me at Mick West. Just about everywhere. So, YouTube /Mick West, Twitter Mick West, Reddit Mick West, MickWest.com, and all the other Mick Wests.
Awesome.
But usually on Twitter, if you.
Yes. So his Twitter is down in the description as well as mine. English idiot. Be sure to like and subscribe. I guess I got to do social media crap so people follow me. But
indeed,
I'm going to throw you in the back and I'll do my outro. Everybody, oh my God, it is great to be back. I love being back. Yes. What a great conversation. Holy crap. Did anybody expect that? No, you didn't. You did not expect that. Such a great conversation. I love everybody in the chat. There are so many of you tonight. Thank you all for supporting the show, and I will see you all later.